Hi there, this is SP 7.2 Circle Graphs. Yay! Okay, identifying common attributes. Now, an attribute just means how you could describe it. And here are some items that you will always find on a circle graph. So we can say this is one of their attributes. They always have a title, they always have a label, they always have a legend. Another attribute is that everything inside has to add up to 360 degrees. Okay, so if we're using one of those protractors with all the degrees on it and the numbers, right? It has to add up to a full circle, 360 degrees. And circle graphs have to add up to 100%. So if you have percents inside your circle graph, which most do, that's kind of why we have them, when you add them for the sum, it has to equal 100%. Okay, so these are the attributes of a circle graph. Now, the actual indicators say you have to make one, you have to label one. You could use Excel technology, or you could just draw one, right, using a protractor and a pencil and whatnot to display your data. You have to find them in print and electronic media like newspapers, magazines, or on the internet. You have to translate the percent, which means figure out if the percent represents a certain quantity. And you might have to solve problems or answer questions. Identify the characteristics of a set of data that make it possible to create your circle graph. So there's really only these two things here. The fact that they add up to 360 and it has to show 100% of something. All right, isn't he cute? Okay, if you took all of these numbers, 15%, 10%, 10%, 25, and 40, and just put them over here, and added them up, 5 and 5 is 10, carry the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 4 is 10. So the percents have to add up to 100, right? You couldn't have a circle graph where this number was 25, because then it wouldn't add up to 100% and you wouldn't be showing all of your data. So the only time you ever use a circle graph is when you are showing how a whole sample or a whole population breaks down into parts. I wish this guy had something to eat. There you go, buddy. You got a carrot. All right. The other rule says if you are actually measuring the angles with a protractor, they would have to add up to a full circle, which is 360 degrees. Okay, so when this person made their circle graph, they converted the numbers, whatever they were paying for rent, whatever they were paying for education and savings and miscellaneous and food, these categories all added up to whatever the total of their expenditures for the month were. And then they divided each one of those by 360, and they figured out that that's what the degrees were, or that was what the percents were. So what is the angle measurement for the food section? Okay, so if this one is 70 and this one's 65 and this one's 80 and this one's 40, everything has to add up to 360. So we just took a 360, we subtracted everybody else, and we got our 105. So this would be 105 degrees. Now you can tell if it was here, this looks like a 90-degree angle right here. And so this would make sense that this whole thing is bigger than 90 by just a little bit, so 105 degrees. Now how exactly do you do that? So finding your percent or finding your angle measurement. Here we go. So they took a little survey and they asked a bunch of people what their favorite color was. So 6 of them said it was blue, 10 said yellow, yada, yada, yada. At the end, when you add up all these responses, that means 40 people actually answered the survey. And so you can say that 6 out of 40 said blue, and 10 out of 40 said yellow, etc. You're making fractions out of these numbers based on the total that you have at the bottom. And so then they took this and they said, what is 6 over 40? That was the frequency, 6 out of 40, right? Of means times 360. So what is 6/40ths of 360? And remember that you can do those reductions before you even start. 360 is actually divisible by 40. Goes in 9 times, right? So this would be a 1. So 6 times 9, right here, 54. So we're talking about degrees here, so 54 degrees. Okay? And so they used that same process. They took the fraction, multiplied it by their degrees, and they got the fraction of the degrees. And so they put down all their degrees, and they equal 360 at the end of the day. So then, how do you draw that? How did they make a 54-degree angle? Well, easy. They took this protractor, this guy, they laid it on this line. They just drew one radius. That's all you need to start with. Draw a radius, doesn't really matter where, somewhere in your circle. And then lay your protractor on over top. So they laid Mr. Protractor like this. Okay. And they found the spot that was 54 degrees. And they drew a little mark there. And they took the protractor away and drew in their full line. I think I have another example coming up. Ah yes, instructions. Okay, so to calculate the angles, you're doing whatever your fraction was, let's say it was 4/5 of 360 degrees. Okay, and that'll give your angle measurement, your degrees, right? Once you get that, you start by drawing a circle with a compass. So the compass is the springy thing that has a pencil on one side and a very sharp pointy thing. Okay, so you draw your circle with your compass and then draw a radius. So let's say they picked, I don't know, this one. Just draw a random radius, doesn't really matter where. Use your radius as one of the legs of this angle. So maybe it looks like they started with 96, doesn't matter. So here is your 72-degree angle, and they drew that line, and then they used it, that line that they just drew, to make the next angle, and they used this line to make the next angle, and so on and so on. Repeat for each sector until your pie chart is complete, and remember that your angles have to equal 360, and that all of the parts have to add up to 100% if you're using percents. Okay, so the cool thing about Excel is that all you have to do is type in your data in column A of whatever it is your survey has in it, put in the corresponding number. Okay, so once you have this part done, you go up to the top and you select this button, pie chart, and then you can pick any one of these things. They all kind of do the same thing. Some are fancier than others. This one has like a little section that has like mini sections inside, but for the most part you're just going to pick regular 2D pie, nothing fancy. And once you click on that, boom, this appears. So you don't have to do any of that measuring or calculating. If you've got your numbers, if your data is correct in column B here, then everything should work out just fine. So then you can go through and you can change the color and you can put in different shapes or different patterns or whatever, and you can adjust your attributes, which means your title and your scale and all those wonderful things. So Excel is pretty cool because it does all the work for us. All right, have fun with circle graphs.